This is the 5 o'clock hour, and we will commence the meeting of the City of Scottsdale Citizens Bond Oversight Committee regular meeting. And I will ask that Aaron, if you would do a roll call, please.
Absolutely. Committee Member Davis.
Here.
Committee Member Fisher.
Here.
Vice Chair Coughlin.
Here.
Chair Du Bois.
Here.
Committee Member Holland.
Here.
Committee Member Herr.
Here.
Committee Member Kamasu.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Before we start, I would like to just thank city staff for being here this evening to help us work through the agenda. It's always appreciated. We appreciate their taking time to be here. And also, I'd like to thank my fellow committee members. And in particular, I wanted to thank Brian Coughlin for covering for me last meeting. One of the great things about the committee is having such competent and effective people who are willing to step up and when you're needed. And Brian did a great job, and I appreciate you taking over last time. So thank you. All right, as we move on to the regular agenda this evening, the first item is the approval of the May 29 summarized meeting minutes. And in looking at our packet, I did notice that the minutes that are attached are the March 25th minutes, and those are not the ones that we're considering. So what we will do is we will defer that item until our next meeting, and then we will consider approving those minutes at the next meeting. All right, moving then to the second item on the agenda, an update on the Bond 2019 program, including question 1, Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services, question number 2, Community Spaces and Infrastructure, and question 3, Public Safety and Technology. And for that, I'd like to call on Allison Timke, the city engineer, to make that presentation for us.
Thank you, Chair Du Bois and members of the committee. So I'm going to just kind of quickly go over the 3 questions. Again, the first question is Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services. Question 2 is Community Spaces and Infrastructure. And question 3 is Public Safety and Information Technology. Okay, so this is a list of the, oh, I already see a typo here, I apologize. This is a list of the question 1, FY 25-26 projects. The first project is project number 2, add splash pad and improve walkways at McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park. This project is complete. We did have a grand opening celebration on August 1st for this project and the Roundhouse project, the project that it was constructed at the same time as, that was not a bond project. The next project is project 13, expand Granite Reef Senior Center to meet demand for adult daycare. The construction for this project has been moved to FY 26-27, and we will be looking at the feasibility of actually having an adult daycare center at this location, and this was a recommendation of the Budget Review Commission, so we will be doing a feasibility study on this first. 21 is expand Via Linda Senior Center to meet demand for senior services. We are proceeding with the programming and early design for this project. Project 22 is build the new swimming pools and replace buildings at Cactus Pool. This project, we're also going to be doing a feasibility for this. We actually have the feasibility study. We're bringing that forward tomorrow night to City Council for authorization of the feasibility study portion of this project, and the actual construction funding has been moved out of the 5-year CIP. The intent is to do the feasibility study and then determine when would be the appropriate year and the appropriate funding for that project. 41 is install solar heating system for El Dorado Pool. That project is a scope change request that we have on the agenda for you tonight to consider. 42 is add a dog park to Thompson Peak Park. Construction is planned to start later this year on that project. Project 60, double solar power generating capacity at the Appaloosa Library. This project is one where it is definitely, I would say, severely underfunded. We have about $40,000, and that would not, we're unable to basically double the generating capacity within that budget. So we do have a design build manager evaluating concepts, and that is one that we foresee bringing back to you in the future with a scope change. And, it will potentially require additional funding too. So we would be looking to see if we had general fund to supplement that. And then Project 61 is purchase land, expand Pinnacle Peak Park parking lot, staff office and restrooms, renovate hiking trail, and construct an interpretive trail. We've talked about this one in the past. We're waiting on ASLD, Arizona State Land, for the auction. However, in the meantime, we are also looking at a conceptual design at this location just so we can have a better understanding of costs and space requirements for that project. And then I just put a few photos of the finished splash pad in here. So you can see in the, this is the new roundhouse building, and then in the background is where the actual splash pad is. And then here's a photo of the splash pad in operation. And then question 1, implementation schedule. So this has been updated with the 25-26 fiscal year. So you can see there's the projects that are either currently under design or construction in this current fiscal year, as well as what's planned for future fiscal years. I did get a question on a couple of these projects. So the Cactus Pool funding, I had explained on the previous slide that the funding has been moved out of the 5-year plan. So for Cactus Pool, you see just design only in this current fiscal year, and you don't see a future year for construction again until we complete that feasibility study. The El Dorado Pool solar heating, that's one of the projects that's on the agenda for a scope change tonight. It's just showing the current fiscal year, which is design, and then construction will follow. And then, again, the Appaloosa Library solar power, which I mentioned on the previous slide, looking at concepts right now, something that we'll probably have to bring back for a scope change or some other direction on that. Okay, so this is question 2, projects in fiscal year 25-26. The first one is 15 build 200 space parking lot off 75th Street to serve the city court and stadium. Construction, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, construction on this project was delayed, and we're looking to potentially reschedule this for spring 2026. And the reason for that delay is there are some federal EPA requirements in the area and in the parking lot area, so we are waiting for further direction on that. Project 18 is build roadway pedestrian improvements along 2nd Street from Drinkwater Boulevard to Goldwater Boulevard. This, I have it on here as on hold, but really what we're looking at is doing a design for this project. I think I've mentioned in the past that the previous city manager had thought of 2nd Street as sort of a highlight project in Old Town, and so what we were looking at was a grander scope than what was actually in the Bond 2019 description, and that was not supported by City Council, so we just put the project on hold, but we are picking it back up to do some preliminary design to see what exactly we can accomplish on that segment within the existing bond funding. Project 19 is build roadway and pedestrian improvements along Marshall Way north of the Indian School Road. This is a new project this fiscal year. We will be looking at doing some feasibility on this project as well. 23 is repair lakes and irrigation at Vista del Camino Park in the Indian Bend Wash. Construction is progressing, and our third GMP was authorized last year. 32, renovate and modernize Stage 2 theater at the Scottsdale Center for Performing Arts. This project is planned with the future expansion of the Scottsdale Art they are planning a new theater with some donation money, and we are planning to do this project in tandem with that. 45 is renovate horse barns to increase rentable space. 7 barns are complete to date, and we have more funding this fiscal year for up to 2 additional barns. 58 is install yes.
Allison, just a quick question. On the barns, do we have in mind what the end number of barns look like?
It's 10 barns.
10.
Yes.
So we're how far? 7?
We've done 7, and we're targeting to do 2 more this fiscal year.
And then
So there will be up to 9, so then it'll be 1 remaining.
1 the following fiscal year?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Okay,
We
58.
have another question.
Sorry.
Council Member Holland?
Yeah, it looks like you skipped over improve Fifth Avenue, 43. On the question number 2.
Oh, on the other slide, because that's not in this current fiscal year. That's in a future
is that-
fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
58 is install parasol solar shade at City Hall parking lot. That construction is scheduled to start this fall. That I had highlighted that at the last meeting. 59 is install solar systems at Civic Center campus, and we're currently evaluating concepts with that, and that project is potentially going to be combined with Project 15. We're looking to do the solar systems at that location at the 75th Street parking lot. 62 is build a bridge on Thompson Peak Parkway over the Riata Pass. That project is currently in design with construction scheduled for next fiscal year. And then 63 is build parking structures in Old Town Scottsdale. That project is the Second Street and Brown Ave project, and we had our first public meeting back in May. I believe it was right before or after our bond oversight meeting in May, and our second public meeting will be held this fall. And then I just put in a few photos of some of the previous barns that were constructed at Westworld. I think this was the most recent barn, and so again, we're scheduled to do either 1 or 2 more this fiscal year.
Question, Allison?
Yes.
From Member Fisher?
Yeah, Allison, whoops, I know in private barns, there's a lot of variability on capacity for horses. Are these bonds pretty standard, and what's the capacity of those, of each one of those?
Do you know the capacity? I know, but do you know how many stalls are in? 48, yeah. I think there are 48 stalls.
Okay, yeah, because I know we do some pretty big events, so.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And we have a lot of barns out there.
And then people, there are also spaces for people to bring trailers in there. Also,
That's correct.
okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, this is the implementation schedule for question 2, and it shows the projects that are currently under design and construction in this fiscal year and then in future fiscal years. And then you can see on this one, Committee Member Holland, you had a question on 43, which was improved Fifth Ave. So this slide here shows that the design for that project is currently scheduled out in fiscal year 28-29 with construction scheduled for 29-30. And that's why it was not on the previous slide. And then question 3, projects in fiscal year 25-26. We have project 5, modernize computer equipment rooms to protect city servers. So the power portion of this project is complete, and the final phase is just the HVAC, and they've received their final approval actually today to move forward with the job order contract on that. Project 9 is install fiber optic infrastructure to reduce operating costs. This is happening in multiple locations in the city, design and construction. 14 is our permitting software, and they're continuing to work with the vendor to complete the configuration of that new system. 17 is obtain a citywide document management and analytics solution for database decision-making, and they're finalizing the architecture requirements for that. 28 is build a new fire station near Hayden Road and Loop 101 to improve response times. That substantial completion of that fire station is targeted in the fall and scheduled to open this fall. 26 is replace deteriorating vehicle track at police and fire training facility. That project is currently in design. And then the modernize and expand the police and fire training facility. That project grand opening was held on May 27th. And again, the fire training facility was complete as of January of this year. And then 34 is build new fire station at 90th Street and Villa Linda to replace aging facility. That project is at the early design stages. 39 is renovate Foothills Police Station to increase efficiency. That's a new project this fiscal year. And then 40 is renovate and expand Civic Center Jail and downtown police facility to meet demand, and the design is progressing on that project. This is just some photographs of the fire station, the build a new fire station near Hayden Road and Loop 101. It's Fire Station 612, the one that's nearing completion. And just a few drone photos to show you that project. It's almost complete. And then again, the implementation schedule for question 3, it shows the projects that are currently in design and construction, fiscal year 25-26, and then in the future fiscal years. These are the completed Bond 2019 projects for question 1. So far, we have 6 of 14 projects completed. For question 2, we have 6 of 20 projects completed. And then for question 3, we have 13 of 24 projects completed. And then again, we do have the one project that had been eliminated, which was update Scottsdale's 15-year-old digital terrain model. And then again, the projects that have an asterisk are the ones that we consider complete because they're open to the public, but they might not have yet been closed out in the CIP budget. And that concludes my presentation if you have any questions.
Any member have any questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, item number 3, the presentation, discussion, and possible action on the Bond 2019 financial report. And for that, I'd ask Scott Seelan, Budget Director, to make a presentation to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Scott Seelan, Budget Director. I'm very happy to be here today to give you the financial and budget update as of June 30, 2025. This is the split between the questions: $112.6 million for question 1, $112.3 for question 2, and $94.1 for question 3, for a total of $319 million. This graph you're looking at shows the financial status as of June 30, 2025 for the 3 different questions. Going from left to right, the yellowish cream-colored bars show the actual expenditures, the orange bars show the amount that is committed, and the light blue bars show the remaining budget, and then the dark blue bars with the white dotted outline are future funding for those various questions. So for question 1, just under $48 million has been spent. Just under $5 million is committed, and there's about $14 million in remaining budget, with $45.7 in future funding for question 1. Question 2, $42.9 million spent, $5.7 committed, and $8 million in remaining budget, with $55.7 in future funding. Finally, question 3, $50 million in expenditures, $9.2 million committed, 17.4 in remaining budget, and 17.5 in the future funding category for question number 3. This slide shows the Bond 2019 program debt issuance. As we all know, $319 million was authorized, and to this point, $240 million has been issued, leaving an estimated $79 million in future issuance. Right now, we estimate that that will occur during fiscal year 26-27. And in the bottom left-hand corner, we've emphasized this the past couple of meetings, but Scottsdale remains a AAA-rated community. We discussed this slide a bit in our last meeting, but I'm going to briefly revisit it today. On May 20th, this is about the most recent GO bond sale. On May 20th, the city competitively sold general obligation bonds. and they were sold as 20-year bonds maturing in 2045. The bonds were well received by the market due to Scottsdale's credit quality and name recognition. And the bonds received 10 bids with the lowest true interest cost of 3.968%. Once again, we mentioned that the bonds received the highest ratings of AAA. And the factors that were mentioned by the agencies in support of these strong ratings are the city's reserve policies and levels, prudent fiscal management, including our conservative budgeting practices, and strong sales tax growth. And then, as we mentioned on the previous slide, with the sale of these Series 2025 bonds, we've now issued $240 million of the $319 million issued, leaving $79 million in future issuances. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Any member have questions? Committee Member Kamasu?
So I have a question on the previous slide, I guess with the future issuance targeted for fiscal year 26-27. So does that imply that once the bond has been issued, let's say in 2027, there's like a 3-year window where all the projects have to be done? So we're essentially saying everything has to be done by 2030. Is that correct?
Yeah, from the closing date. So in this
Right.
case, from the 2025 bond issue, that was from June 11th, 2025. So this bond issue that we just issued, that 3-year window would be June
Right.
11th, 2028. So if we issued bonds March 1st of 2027, then March 1st of 2030 would be that 3-year spend down time period that we would be tracking.
Okay, thanks.
So in other words, each issuance triggers its own 3-year statute for use of the money. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is number 4, presentation, discussion, and possible action on a modification to the scope of Project 41 to install solar heating system for El Dorado Pool, to install a solar photovoltaic system in lieu of the proposed ground-mounted solar water heating system. And for this, I would defer to Allison Timku, the city engineer, for presentation.
Thank you, Chair DuBois, members of the committee. So this project, Project 41, install solar heating system for El Dorado Pool. This is the bond 2019 project description. It was to install a ground-mounted solar pool hot water heating system at El Dorado Pool to reduce energy costs for heating the pool during the shoulder seasons and winter months. The project is estimated to save approximately $70,000 per year in energy costs. So that was the original bond 2019 project description, and we are proposing. This request is to modify the project scope to be a photovoltaic PV installation in lieu of a water heating system. City staff had concerns with the maintenance requirements of the solar water heating system and the ground area required for the installation. Additionally, it wasn't very efficient to do the water heating in our climate, basically, because the best time for the heating of the water would be in the summer, which is actually when we don't need to heat the pool. So instead, a parking shade canopy with solar photovoltaic panels has been contemplated instead, and the solar system would be grid connected to SRP through the service to the pool. The budget for the project is $560,000. What we looked at is designing this project to fit within the existing budget. And the system size is 71 kilowatts with construction scheduled for next winter and projected to be completed the following spring. So some of the disadvantages of the solar thermal system are space constraints. It was going to take a lot of space out in the park to actually put the solar panels down. And then there was some safety concerns because we would have to fence that area. Again, the seasonal mismatch, which I had mentioned before, really we don't need to be heating the pool in the summertime months, which is when that system is most efficient. Then there's some overheating and safety risks. There's limited cost savings. The project description said that we would save $70,000 annually, but we don't have any evidence that that is the case. We've studied it, and we're not even sure where those numbers came from back in the original bond description, but we aren't really able to replicate that. There's lower efficiency with this type of a system. It's a complex installation. There are higher operating and maintenance costs, and then there's limited monitoring and validation capabilities with that system. And then the solar PV advantages are it's lower maintenance, it has more reliable performance, it's a simple integration, it allows for remote monitoring, there's long-term durability, it's scalable and flexible. So for example, we are able to construct it to our budget now with potential for adding on in the future. And then it really has a visible impact because we are providing shade in the parking lot. I wanted to add that we do have some, to not sound one-sided, we do have some solar thermal advantages. So the solar thermal advantages were that they would offset natural gas currently used for heating. And it's a relatively simple system with no utility involvement. We don't have to connect into the SRP system. And then for the solar voltaic disadvantages, the system size is limited by budget and utility restrictions. So we are limited by the utility, by SRP, with how much we can actually, the size of our actual system. And then it would require, obviously, the construction of the parking structure canopy for that project. But that is our request. We've found that the original bond description really isn't very feasible for our situation. And then, as I've mentioned previously, we really are trying to be fiscally responsible and build some of these projects within our project budget, and doing these photovoltaic panels, we could accomplish that. So with that, if you have any questions.
Question from Committee Member Coughlin.
I had a question on this. So with the change over to the PV system, what was the original cost versus the estimated new cost? Did you say it was a wash?
I think our estimated cost, the project manager is here, correct me if I'm wrong, doing the water heater system would be about the same as doing the PV panels, correct? Okay, so we didn't actually analyze the construction cost because we realized it wasn't a feasible system for us.
Okay, and then how about it's currently heated via natural gas, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what would the approximate, I guess there's been a cost-benefit analysis on savings done of going over to solar versus just keeping it as natural gas?
Well, we are keeping it as natural gas.
Oh.
What we're doing now is just putting in the solar voltaic.
Oh, and selling back to SRP.
Yes,
So the
exactly.
limitations then were the constraints of how much energy we could sell back to SRP.
Correct.
Okay, what was the estimate on that as to how much on an annual basis would be generated selling back to SRP to offset? Because then we could look at that as an offset to the cost of natural gas to heat the pool, correct?
I think it was $7,000 to $10,000 a year.
A year? Okay,
Yes.
okay. So minimal amount, okay. Thank you.
Another question from Committee Member Holland.
So basically, you're saying that these PV panels will heat the pool instead of?
No. So the request is to change the scope from heating the pool to just putting in the solar panels.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
So the solar panels are not going to be involved in heating the pool.
correct.
So what the request is, as I understand it, is just to change the scope of the project, and we're not being asked to impact the dollars at all by this request.
That's correct.
So if we approve this, then the scope of the project will change. None of the money allocated for the project would change, however.
That's correct.
Do we know whether or not there will actually be a savings in the money that was allocated for the project by this change?
No, Chair DuBois, we're basically planning to use the entire budget for this project.
And that budget is still the 560,000?
Correct.
And then the implementation schedule for question 1 shows Project 41, the El Dorado Pool Solar Heating for fiscal 25-26 to be in the design stage. And,
That's correct.
and
Design this year, and then we would construct following year.
and so the implementation schedule would not be impacted either?
That's correct.
Yes. Committee Member Coughlin?
So going back to this just a little bit more, so the cost is 560 to do this project, okay? And we're going to save, that would generate, selling back to SRP, about 10,000 per year, per month,
Per year.
per year. So that's an awful long, seems like an awful long payback period to do this. It's about 56 years, just generically, right? Not including any interest on that. So that seems like a fairly long payback period for this project, in my mind. Obviously, it's changed dramatically if the original estimates were 70,000 plus, but this seems like a fairly long payback period.
That is correct, Vice Chair Coughlin. The other thing with this new scope is we do have the potential in future years to expand it
Additional costs.
at additional cost, yes.
I guess one of the key holdbacks is really going to be SRP. We have some risk there if SRP continues to buy energy and at what rate they would buy energy back at.
Another question, Committee Member Fisher?
Yeah, so in my mind, the original project of putting in a solar pool heater was potentially cost savings or replacing a system that may have been going out. If we don't change anything and we just continue to heat with natural gas, is the system in good shape, or is it going to be, are we going to have to spend some money to fix it later? I'm just wondering if we're going down a road where we're just going to have more expense.
Yeah, that's a good question, Committee Member Fisher. I'm trying to remember when we built El Dorado Pool Project. I think it is about 20 years ago that we built that pool, but I'm not sure, the condition of the boilers. Do you know? Okay, so there might have been an equipment replacement within the last 20 years since we've built it.
But if that was necessary, the city council would have to allocate the money to replace it. It wouldn't be anything coming out of any bond funds.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and gas systems are pretty efficient, so.
Just one quick follow-up. So if the committee recommends approval, there will be a design analysis. Will you then come back to this committee and ask for approval of the budget based on the new design, or is this a one-off? We're going to recommend a change in scope and recognize that the budget is going to be $560,000, and no further action would be contemplated by this committee on that item. Is that correct?
Chair DuBois, that's correct.
Yes, Committee Member Ben-Hur.
In my mind, this is it's called scope changes. I'm not quite sure what the original the bond documentations describe about these projects, because I mean, to me it sounds like totally two different projects. So is it like permissible or allowable to like change direction of these projects from one to the other?
Committee Member Herr, yes, that is the purview of the Bond Oversight Committee. We can bring scope changes to you for your consideration, and then if you recommend the scope change, then it would also be have to be approved by City Council, which we did do that, if you recall, on the Westworld horse barns. So the original scope for that project was renovating the existing horse barns, and then we found out that wasn't feasible. It was more cost-effective to replace the horse barns. So we went forward with that scope change, and then it was approved by City Council. So it would be very similar to that situation here.
If you don't mind, do you remember or recall what was the original term of the bond for this project?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
I mean, what was actually original, like, Porter approved the terms or projects itself for this one?
Maya, can you go back to that the second slide on this presentation? The second slide. Yeah, the second one. Yep. Okay. Right there. Yes. Okay. So that was the bond 2019 project description that was voted on. Install a ground-mounted solar pool hot water heating system at El Dorado Pool to reduce energy costs for heating the pool during the shoulder seasons and winter months. The project is estimated to save approximately $70,000 per year in energy costs. And I just want to remind you again that when we evaluated the pool hot water heating system, we weren't able to figure out where that $70,000 estimate came from because that is not the savings that this project would, that we would recognize if we had done the water heater option.
Yes, Committee Member Kamasu.
So one follow-up question to that, like in the original list, the 70,000 per year that couldn't be verified, did you guys do an analysis of, let's say you stuck with the original design, you know, how much would you really save?
You want to come up? This is Roger Berna. He's our principal project manager.
So is this mic on? Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Yes, when we first started evaluating this project, we worked with parks and with facilities, the people that have to maintain the system, and neither saw the water system as being very viable for the pool. Number one, our experience with water heating systems is they're high maintenance and problematic. And number two, we'd have to give up a large ground area within the wash to establish this ground-mounted system. It's much more bulky, and the panels are bigger than they would be for a photovoltaic system. And then the challenge with coming up with the savings is actually evaluating the performance of the system, because it varies, you know, with the sun angle, the number of hours of sun you get on it, and just to throw out broad assumptions based on the maximum capacity of the system, saying it'll save $70,000 is probably a little too symptomatic. You really need to analyze how much, you know, energy you're producing at any hour of the day, you know, and what your overall average is going to be. So I think it was a very simplistic back of the napkin kind of calculation they came up with when they put this project together. So looking at what, you know, we would reasonably like to build and maintain, the photovoltaic is a much simpler system, very low maintenance. It has the added benefit that we can put a shade structure in the parking lot. We're not taking up any area in the wash to install a system. It'll be safe and secure. There could be a lot of vandalism to a water system mounted on the ground. And we'd also have to fence it, so that's even more of the park that we would lose. So, and I don't know how attractive that would really be either. So these will be pretty much unnoticed, and everybody appreciate the shade. And right now we're working with a size that is somewhat limited by SRP because it's based on your maximum peak load. And for the swimming pool, that's, you know, pump equipment, lighting, things like that. And, you know, maybe in the future, a better system than boilers would be to go to heat pumps. That would be a total electric load. We wouldn't be burning natural gas. So that might be a consideration in the future if these boilers need to be replaced. We could go to an electrical system that would, you know, allow us to do even more solar. So that was our thinking. Again, the water system was not attractive to facilities or parks looking at it. So.
Question from Committee Member Holland.
So does the El Dorado pool currently have heat?
Yes,
So
they
the
use natural
community-
gas boilers.
Okay, okay. So so the community impact is negligible, so
Right.
the community can use a heated pool currently.
Correct.
Okay.
That won't change in this project. We will just offset the electrical bill rather than the natural gas bill.
Okay.
A question from Committee Member Davis.
I'm still confused. We're going to spend $560,000 for a solar system, and we're only going to see savings of $10,000 a year? Then that's not a good project. The whole project ought to be canceled rather than changing the scope. There's no sense in doing it, in my judgment. That's throwing horrible money. It's not even cost of the bond money. It doesn't even equal the bond interest.
You want to address that?
Committee Member Davis, so there is potential to cancel the project. That is an alternative. Previous direction from City Council is they didn't want to cancel projects. They wanted to continue with the projects that the voters approved on. But that is an option that we could seek.
Just a quick follow-up to that. So if we were to recommend the change in scope, it seems to me like this language has to be modified because we're dealing with a description of a project where we've told the voters that we're going to save $70,000 per year doing it this way. We're now going to recommend changing the scope of the project. Do we just ignore the part where we had represented that we're going to save $70,000 a year, or do we not totally rewrite the description of the project to match the change in the scope that we would be recommending? You see what I'm saying?
Chair DuBois, yes, we would just rewrite the scope to match the new description.
And I assume we would just try to ignore the $70,000?
Correct.
Okay. All right, and who would do that? Who would write that language, and what would be the approval process for that? Do you not need to go back and rewrite that language and present the revised proposed language to us for approval rather than just saying that we're going to change the scope?
So if you, Chair DuBois, if you guys decide to approve, if the committee approves the change in scope, this would stay as part of the historical record as the project description that was voted on by the community. If we amend the scope through a scope change, there would be new language included. Whatever changes are voted on here also need to go to City Council, and they would approve that scope change language at that time.
Okay, and based on the timeline that we were presented, where we're in design phase now and there's no construction phase indicated on the timeline, it seems to me that it's not a matter of, I don't want to say urgency, but it's not a matter that we can't wait and get the proper language presented to us to vote on. We can, in a general sense, recommend that maybe we should change the scope, but it would seem to me that for the committee to vote, that they need to have the precise language in front of them in order to make a decision on whether to make that recommendation. Am I missing something there in that process?
That's correct. We could do that. There's time to do that.
Okay. Committee Member Ben-Hur?
So that's kind of what my main concerns are. I think that this specific project was clearly says solar heating system for the pool, and then versus we just kind of put a solar panel over the parking lot. I don't think that's kind of scope changes. This basically we canceling the projects and then just adding new projects. So I'm just going to make sure that is appropriate, and then we just kind of follow the right step for that.
Yes, correct. Committee Member Hur. We are able to make this scope change with your recommendation.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Committee Member Fisher?
Yeah, Allison, so if we turn this down, Can the money be used in something else in question one, or does that get taken out of it?
Well, first, if you wanted to turn this down and eliminate the project, City Council would have to approve eliminating the project. And then if it was approved by City Council to eliminate this project, yes, we could use the funding for another question one project.
So the city council could turn around and say, yes, we still want to go ahead with this?
Correct.
Yes, Vice Chair Coughlin?
So just to understand that correctly, essentially the city council can overrule the committee here.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Committee Member Davis, question?
If it's in order, I would move that this committee suggest or would reject this project and recommend to the city council that this project be removed because of the poor payback and poor use of the funds.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded that the committee recommend that the project be eliminated and be able to recognize the savings that was budgeted for the project. Is that the motion?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes. Questions on the motion?
How many parking spots of shade would this cover? You know, I mean, is this 20, I mean, overall, how many parking spaces are at this El Dorado pool area? And exactly how much shaded spots would these solar panels cover? Is it a majority of the parking for
No.
the community?
No, unfortunately, it's not a majority of the parking. We're somewhat limited in size by what the utility will allow us to connect to the grid.
Okay.
So they want to make sure that we don't damage their systems by, and plus they don't want to pay for more than they want to pay for. So.
Okay.
It could be expandable because this parking lot also serves the Boys and Girls Club. So there is quite a bit of parking there that a system can be expanded. I'm a little bit fuzzy on who pays the bills at the Boys and Girls Club, but they could possibly benefit from an additional solar as well.
Any questions on the motion? Yes, Committee Member Kamasu.
Just one more question tied to, let's say we reject this and we come up with a new project that more accurately describes like the photovoltaic system. You mentioned earlier like we get some credits back from SRP. Could that be quantified a little more in the revised proposal? You know, because SRP can kind of hum and hedge, you know, just how much they're going to pay back, and it'd be nice if there could be something in writing.
Well, we do an interconnection agreement with the utility, and that defines a lot of, you know, who does what. I don't know if it gets into the actual monies, because that's more of a, you know, SRP is a unique utility in that they're not for profit. So I think they disclose less possibly than APS does about what rates will be. But
Yes, Committee Member Fisher.
So just a question about what you just talked about, this system agreement that we have with SRP. So SRP is a utility that transports water but also generates electricity. So I think by state statutes or law, whatever, they have to buy some amount of power, but they can limit how much they get. And is that the restriction that we're looking at here?
no, it's more of a load put on their grid. Because if you go with a grid-connected system, you can't overpower the load that you would consume. So we'll probably never produce 100% of our power. We'll just be restricted. So they base it on our peak load, a percentage of our peak load. But like I said, even with the solar water heating, the amount you generate varies at any time during the day. So it's a very complex calculation to come up with. But basically, if we dump more power in the grid than we're using, the meter will go backwards. It's a very simple process. But we may never overpower the meter. We may always use more power than we're putting back in the grid.
This may be a tough question to answer, but is it possible to have some kind of a battery system where it's charging a battery that can be used by the Boys and Girls Club or some other place? I mean, that would be
Those are
additional
options,
cost, but the
but
city
those are
would have to-
extremely expensive systems. The batteries are extremely expensive for a commercial venture. I mean, everybody sees the Tesla wall, for a home, but we'd probably need 10 Tesla walls for a, and then there's, the question of lithium batteries in general. They like to catch on fire.
And you can't put them out.
You can't.
So just a couple of comments about the motion before we call for a vote on the motion. I'm wondering if maybe the approach we should take here, rather than jumping to the conclusion where we actually recommend eliminating the project, it seems like we have a lot of questions and where we could use some more information about the proposal and what the scope of the redesign might be, what we do with the $560,000, what we can use it for, where it could go, what the payback is, whether or not there's really a savings. And so I'm wondering if, rather than voting, we might defer the motion until the next meeting and ask for a more detailed presentation on these issues that have been raised by the members. Jim, it was your motion, so I don't know, how do you feel about that?
I'm agreeable to that, so somebody wants to make a motion to amend it?
I'm amenable to that also.
So perhaps we will just defer that motion for now. We'll withdraw the motion, and I'd like staff to understand the sense of the committee is that we are seriously considering recommending that we eliminate this particular project. But before we go there, we'd just like to get more information, as indicated by the questions, as far as what the scope of the redesign might be, and then dollars. We'd like to know how the dollars would be saved, where they might go. Maybe there's a better use of that money. It's $500,000. Maybe we can use it somewhere else within this same question. And maybe this isn't a project that we need to worry about. But at the same time, recommending that it is part of the bond approval. It was a promise to the voters that this is what we were going to do. So I think we need maybe some more information. If we could get that and put this matter on the agenda for our next meeting, and then we can address those questions. Does anybody object to that on the committee? Okay.
Chair DuBois, I believe that we have the time to do that and bring it back at the next meeting. I just want to make sure that we're going to meet the expectations that you are setting for us. We can review the materials that we brought. I think one thing that we could definitely do is write a alternate scope or project description that would be used to forward to council if you do approve the scope change. I think we might be able to, I heard questions on number of spaces we didn't know, and then maybe some more concrete figures as far as that SRP payback. I think the rest of the questions, I believe we were able to answer tonight, but we could review them in greater detail with you. I believe that due to procedure, it would be premature of us to look at where else we would use that funding. I think what procedurally would happen is either this committee could approve the change of scope or recommend, or I guess approve the change of scope or the recommendation for the change of scope, and that would go to City Council. Or you could recommend the elimination of the project, and that would go to City Council. It wouldn't be appropriate to talk about reallocating the money until City Council has decided whether they want to move forward with a modified scope or eliminate the project. But that is definitely something that would come back to this group, just not at the next meeting. We would need to have the formal decision to eliminate the project before we looked at reallocating that money.
Okay. And as part of that, if we could have the actual language that would be proposed for the redesign or the new proposed project scope presented, that we can actually vote on that language if we decide to vote on it.
I think that's something we can do, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from any other members? Okay. All right, thank you very much.
If there is anything else that you would like included in that presentation, please do let us know so that we can bring it forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Allison.
So at this point, Chair DuBois, I believe you do need to take formal action to defer the item to the next meeting.
I will, I don't need a motion for that. I can just recommend, or do you think I need a motion?
I believe you do need a motion for that.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Well, let's do it that way. Since we did have one motion that's been withdrawn, the chair will entertain a motion to defer item number 4 to the next meeting, including the items of concern that's been voiced by the committee members here this evening. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Been moved and seconded that we make that deferral, and the chair will call. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right, the motion is passed unanimously, and so we will address that item at the next meeting. All right, the next item on the agenda is item number 5, presentation, discussion, and possible recommendation to council to apply bond interest earnings to the following projects. And this, I'll defer to Erica Combs, our finance manager, for that presentation.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Chair DuBois, members of the committee. I appreciate your time and energy this evening. So we are discussing the interest earnings that came from the bond issue that closed February 1st, 2023. So there's a lot of state law considerations, federal securities law considerations, and federal tax law considerations when we're issuing the debt. And one of the documents that we sign at the closing is a tax certificate. And in that box, I've tried to summarize some of those items that are in that tax certificate. And it relates to a lot of the tracking of the spending and record keeping that happens after the debt is issued. So we're getting closer to a 3-year temporary period, and that date would be February 1st, 2026. So we had some investments related to this GO bond, general obligation bond, and those investments matured on June 30th, 2025. And so we're at a great point to be really looking at how much interest we received from those investments and from the bond proceeds that we want to spend on projects. So you can see that last paragraph states net proceeds to be used to pay for the projects must be invested at an unrestricted yield for a period not to exceed 3 years from the date thereof. So that was February 1st, 2023. So on the next slide, well, I went very quickly. Sorry, I think I messed that up. But on the next slide, I just want to also just emphasize our policies. So this is we review our financial policies every fiscal year, and this hasn't changed, but this provides information on our bond interest earnings are limited to funding changes to the bond financed capital improvement projects as presented by the council or be applied to debt service payments on the bonds issued. So I wanted to just bring that up, and then this is an overview of that, our proceeds from that bond 2023. So we've broken that out by the 3 questions and whether they were tax exempt or taxable bonds issued. And then below that, we've included the interest earnings as of June 30th, 2025 by question. So these three amounts is what we would be then allocating to projects within those questions. And we looked at the spending for these questions, what can be spent ideally by that February 1st, 2026 target date. And then any additional interest earnings that come up, we would just end up, it would go towards the debt service payments is what would happen. And that, we've got this time period of, we're going to CBOC tonight after this. If this is approved, we'll then go to City Council, and that all and then we have to make sure the money is spent all by February 1st, 2026. So we're a little bit of a time crunch, timing-wise, and making sure that those interest earnings are spent, and then we have the appropriate approvals for those. So this last slide breaks down by question how those proceeds would be spent. And as I stated before, we looked at the timing for the projects and where the needs are, and can the money be spent in that time frame. So I'll briefly go through the three questions and the amounts for each project, and then happy to answer additional questions. So question 1 has $515,000, and we've targeted project 42, add a dog park to Thompson Peak Park. Question 2 has $533,000, and we've included project 15, which is build 200 space parking lot off 75th Street to serve the City Court and Scottsdale Stadium. This project is not in the 2025 bond, and so at this point, this project spent around $191,000, and it's estimated to spend another $150,000 by that February 1st, 2026 date. So that's how we've come up with this $341,000, and so it is providing us funding for some expenses that are in place that we didn't include in the 2025 bond issue. The other project is project 23, repair lakes and irrigation at Vista del Camino Park in the Indian Bend Wash. So that would use up the remaining funds from that interest earning. And then question 3 has the largest amount, and that's $1,791,000. So we've projected $1.2 million to be used for project 33, renovate the Via Linda Police Station to increase efficiency, $300,000 for project 40, renovate and expand the Civic Center Jail and downtown police facility to meet demand, and $291,000 for project 27, modernize and expand the police and fire training facility. So as I've suggested before, any remaining funds would be used towards future debt service payments. And that would all be within state, federal law, and we're working very closely with our bond counsel, Greenberg Traurig, and our municipal advisor, Piper Sandler, to make sure that we are following and making sure we're maximizing what we're able to do. Any
Questions? Yes, Committee Member Kamasu.
So I guess one thing that I'm not clear on is with the additional funds that would be added to each project, do the construction times get shortened because of this money, or is additional scope or benefit added to a project? It's just not clear, like, okay, this project's being given additional funds, and as a project manager, I know sometimes it'd be like, oh, we've got extra money, let's just buy stuff to fill it up. Can you be more specific, or can it be identified? I know the time frame is really short with February.
Committee Member Kamasu, no, that we're not really increasing the budget for these projects. Most of these projects had received general fund dollars in the past, so we would just be offsetting general fund dollars.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Committee Member Herr.
A couple of things I just want to clarify on this one. So first, was there any unspent proceeds, not interest, to be spent by the spring of the 2026? Need to be allocated first before the interest incomes?
I mean, for the projects that we've identified, there is a small amount of money that we're still making sure we're spending by February 1st, 2026. And in some cases, some of these projects were also included in the 2025 bond. So we're making sure, and we're doing some, if there were some purchase orders or expenses that ended up in the 2025 bond that should have been in the 2023 bond, because we want to spend that money first before we spend our 2025 bond. So we're very close to making sure that all that money is spent.
So if that's the case, is there any chance you may not be able to spend this money until you just kind of exhausted the 2020 bond to be spent?
No, they are basically in tandem.
Okay.
At this point, we hadn't provide Allison and her team the projections for them to be able to spend this money. So, I mean, at this point, we're just trying to, in a timing issue, making sure that we're spending all the funds, the interest earning, the project earn, everything's being spent by February 1st, 2026. And I feel like we have a solid plan to make sure that that happens.
And then the other question is about this interest. Is that when the interest occurred, or is that when the bond was issued? The reason I'm saying that, probably from now until spring of 2026, probably there is some more interest accrued.
There is.
And then that's going to be like a...
There is, and we're going to use that to pay debt service, because otherwise we would be having this timing issue of we come to you and then come to
Right.
city, and we're running out of time. So that whatever interest is on the small amount of money that's still able to earn interest, we're going to use that on debt service.
One more question. So the project 15, I think so earlier you mentioned that project 15 is just kind of going to be rescheduled in the spring of 2026. If that is the case, maybe this is not going to be like guaranteed to spend in the spring, because we don't know what's going to happen to project 2015. Would it be like a better projects to be allocated if that's the case?
Committee Member Herr, that project is currently in design, and we have already expended a portion of those funds. So it would go towards what we have already expended, and then they're projecting to spend an additional amount. So we've calculated based on what was already spent and what is projected to be spent in the design of that project.
Thank you so much.
Vice Chair Kaufman, question?
So in regard to the interest earnings, these were just excess earnings, not a part of the original funding or growth of interest to fund the projects. These are just excess earnings due to the rising interest rate environment. So we've got more in interest earnings than maybe was expected or projected.
I mean, this is the interest that was based on the funds that, there was amounts that were invested with a third party, PFM, and so any interest that was sitting in the accounts is included in this number, and then any interest earnings from those investments is also included in this.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to state is that the interest, the earnings weren't a part of the projections
No.
to fund these projects. It's just,
No.
okay.
No, we only project what the proceeds from the bond
From the bond
at that
sale,
time, which
yeah.
was that 77.7 million.
Okay. And the excess earnings then can be used for these other projects to service debt, or I'm not sure if any of the bonds are callable, if we could retire debt early.
They have 10-year par calls, so we're
Okay.
not even close to that.
Oh, okay.
But we'll be using them for debt service, and then, yes, within each question, we can spend those funds within each question.
Okay. And these projects that expand for questions 1, 2, and 3, are any of these new or they're existing that you said that were just being funded or shortfall from the bond issuance, and so they're being funded by the general fund right now? So this would offset the general fund commitments? Or
Vice Chair Coughlin, yeah,
Vice
that's
Mayor?
correct. That is correct, yeah. These projects had all received additional general fund in the past, so we're using that to offset.
And these were projects underfunded due to the rising costs we experienced during periods of inflation over the
Correct.
last few years?
And they are all existing projects, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, procedurally, as I understand it, we have the recommendations for each of these questions, and I think procedurally, and in order to make a better record, I would entertain a motion to accept the recommendation on each of the questions, and so we'll break those down. I still have to read them, but bear with me. So the first recommendation has to do with question number 1, and the recommendation that we're being asked to approve as to question 1, a total of $515,000, subpart 1, or small I, a fiscal year 2025-26 general fund capital contingency budget appropriation transfer up to $515,000 for Project 42, which is add a dog park to Thompson Peak Park to be funded by general obligation bonds, project of 2019, Series 2023 interest earnings. Is there a motion to make such recommendation? Yes.
Do you want to do motions on each question, or can we do one motion for all of the interest?
I think to make a clear record, I prefer to do it with each question.
Okay. Then
That way I don't have to read and put everybody to sleep for all that amount of time. I can break it up.
Okay.
So is there a motion to approve the recommendation as stated for question number 1?
Yeah, I move that we approve the interest earnings to be allocated per the recommendations.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Member Davis. Any questions on the motion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion is approved by a vote of 4-1, and we'll move now to question number 2, the recommendation for question number 2. Question number 2 is for a total of $533,000, subpart I, a fiscal year 2025-26 general fund capital contingency budget appropriation transfer up to $341,000 for Project 15, Bill 200 space parking lot off 75th Street to serve the city court and Scottsdale Stadium to be funded by general obligation bonds, Project 2019, Series 2023 interest earnings. The second part of that question, II, a fiscal year 2025-26 general fund capital contingency budget appropriation transfer up to $192,000 for Project 23, repair lakes and irrigation at Vista del Camino Park in the Indian Bend Wash to be funded by general obligation bonds, project of 2019, Series 2023 interest earnings. Is there a motion to approve this recommendation?
I made a motion.
I'm sorry. Member Herr made the motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Davis. All in favor of the recommendation as to question number 2, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
And again, a vote of 5-1. All right, finally, as to question 3, a total of $1,791,000. Subpart I, a fiscal year 2025-26 general fund capital contingency budget appropriation transfer up to $1,200,000 for Project 33, renovate the Via Linda Police Station to increase efficiency, to be funded by general obligation bonds, project of 2019, Series 2023 interest earnings. Subpart II, a fiscal year 2025-26 general fund capital contingency budget appropriation transfer up to $300,000 for Project 40, renovate and expand the Civic Center Jail and Downtown Police Facility to meet demand, to be funded by general obligation bonds, project of 2019, Series 2023 interest earnings. And then finally, Subpart 3, a FY fiscal year 25-26 general fund capital contingency budget appropriation transfer up to $291,000 for Project 27, modernize and expand the police and fire training facility to be funded by general obligation bonds, project of 2019, Series 2023 interest earnings. Is there a motion to approve this recommendation?
So move.
Motion has been made by Committee Member Fisher. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Second by Committee Member Holland. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, call for a vote. All in favor of making such recommendations as noted, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
And again, the vote is 5-1 in favor. And
Committee, or excuse me, Chair Du Bois, just to correct it for the record, it would be a 6-1.
1, 2, 3. I didn't vote.
Are you not voting?
No. The chair typically won't vote unless there's a tie. So,
Okay.
okay. All right. I think that's the last item on the menu, on the agenda. Any questions from the members? If not, we get to the public comment part of the agenda. And I know you're tired of listening to me read, but for the record, let me read the procedure with regard to public comment. Citizens may address the members of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee during public comment. This public comment time is reserved for citizen comments regarding non-agendized items. Arizona state law prohibits the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee from discussing or taking action on an item that is not on the prepared agenda. Citizens may complete one request to speak public comment card per meeting and submit it to the city staff. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Written comment cards are being accepted for both agendized and non-agendized items and may be submitted to city staff at any time. Cards submitted after public testimony has begun will be provided to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee at the conclusion of the testimony for that term. Are there any public comment requests?
Chair Du Bois, we have not received any today.
Okay. All right, then we will have no public comment at this time. I believe that completes the committee's business. Again, I'd like to thank all the city staff for being here and making your presentations and responding to our questions. I'd also like to thank the members of the committee for their time and attention to these matters. And at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Motion by Vice Chair Coughlin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Committee Member Holland seconds. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay. All right, the committee will stand adjourned at, 6:20. Thank you very much.